Pixel 7 series is due very soon, and thanks to some new benchmarks, we now have a better idea about the CPU and GPU improvements brought by the brand new Tensor G2 processor, which will be at the very heart of our new devices. So, you're probably wondering, what's new? Is it improved? Well, let's dive in. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. We're hotly anticipating the launch of the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, which are going to be properly showcased at Google's October 6th hardware event. Google has already given us an early introduction to the phones, which was back at I/O earlier this year, but quite a few details have yet to be at least officially confirmed. And while we're ordinarily skeptical about leaked benchmarks, we wanted to discuss this as there are going to be a fair few devices floating around in the ether or the real world that could account for these data points. Obviously, one of the bigger mysteries has been the upcoming Tensor G2 chip or processor, which is the new naming for the second generation Google Tensor processor, which, as you may or may not know, has been created in collaboration with Samsung. After making a fairly strong debut in the Pixel 6 series, albeit one that has since lagged behind the competition such as Qualcomm and MediaTek at the top end over the last year, many have been wondering where Google will take the Tensor line and if we'll get a truly out-and-out flagship processor that competes with the best or competes directly with the best in the business. After all though, Tensor is not the best chip on Android. In fact, it sits somewhere in the chasing pack. The strength of the Tensor processor is not actually in pure raw benchmarks and power. In fact, it's in other areas such as real-time language processing and computational photography features like motion mode, action pan, and face unblur. Maybe Google's experiment with the Pixel 5 and somewhat weak Snapdragon 765G proved internally to the developers and the people working on these processors that you don't need masses of under-the-hood grunt to offer a flagship-level experience, at least in terms of software. Just focus and own the right areas and things will be smooth and consistent, or at least that's something from an outside perspective we think Google may have worked upon. Speculation aside on Google's internal aims and objectives though, thanks to some expert digging by Android developer Kuba Wojciechowski over on Twitter, we now have strong evidence of the Pixel 7 Pro and its Tensor G2 processor and what they will bring to the table, at least performance-wise. First though, we need to go through a bit of a disclaimer, as much of the new information is sourced from a Geekbench listing for the Pixel 7 Pro that has appeared on their site. It should be noted that it's fairly easy to falsify this information that has been reported by Geekbench. That said, there are quite a few fine details which our team has actually looked into and looked over and confirmed that do actually in fact point towards this Pixel 7 Pro benchmark being legit. All the same though, these details should be taken with a grain of salt, or a spoonful of salt as we know, as they can be altered and indeed faked. Sadly, that's just a state of the way these benchmark sites run, and it's the state of the internet as it is, and trust us, it's as annoying for us as it is to you. But digging into the details, it looks like Google has not really changed all that much about the CPU cores used between last year's Tensor, found in the Pixel 6, 6 Pro and the 6A, and this year's upcoming Tensor G2. From what we can piece together, or what we have pieced together, it's using the same combination of two Cortex X1 cores, two Cortex A76 cores, and four Cortex A55 cores, albeit with slightly higher clock speeds. Those slightly boosted speeds combined with the smaller 4nm die size being used this time around appear to improve the Tensor G2 and the Pixel 7 Pro multi-core benchmark by around 10%. Yes, just 10%. While this may seem disappointing at first, it's actually possible that this could work out for the best, as raw performance isn't what we're looking for with the Pixel 7 to improve upon. Realistically, the Pixel 7 and Tensor G2 processor do need to catch up with the work done by Qualcomm and the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 in terms of overall heat reduction and power efficiency. As Kuba speculates in his Twitter thread, it's possible, though far from confirmed, that this design could help make that level of efficiency happen, and in turn we'll see better sustained performance levels with the upcoming smartphones. However, where the Pixel 7 Pro's Tensor G2 specs do get a significant boost is in its GPU power. The evidence here suggests that the switch from the Mali G75 GPU to the new Mali G710 GPU is set to offer around 20% better performance, or at least it does on paper, 20% better power efficiency on top of that, and it's also claimed that this is 35% better for machine learning tasks, which, as you may remember, is one of the key focuses of the Tensor line and something Google stressed back at the launch of the Pixel 6 series last year with the first generation processor in those smartphones. On that note, there are also signs here that Google intends to include a next generation of its Tensor Processing Unit, or TPU, codenamed Genero, in the Tensor G2, which should offer another boost to the Pixel 7 series. One final detail, all but confirmed by this benchmark result, is that the Pixel 7 Pro will also likely feature 12GB of RAM, something we've noted earlier, like the Pixel 6 Pro, to help keep things ticking along nicely. For those wondering where this puts the Tensor G2, at least in the Geekbench charts, it's in or around many Snapdragon 888 powered Android devices, which, as you remember, was the flagship chip last year, but that often does not really translate to real-world performance differences, and it's something that is almost hard to quantify when you're using a device, although you may see lower frame rates and all those kind of things that come with a slightly lesser chip. That said, we are hoping for bigger improvements in other areas like the modem. Tensor G2 is rumoured to come with the brand new Samsung Exynos 5300 modem, which should improve overall peak download and upload speeds, as well as network connection stability and consistency. Again, real-world connectivity might differ, but we're very interested to see if the new modem can help improve the sometimes awful or spotty connectivity that Pixel 6 owners see in certain scenarios and even in congested networks. All in all though, it looks like the Tensor G2 might not make the Pixel 7 Pro an incredibly exciting update, at least in terms of specs for owners of the Pixel 6 series, but iterative updates and upgrades here could make for a more consistent experience for those who do happen to pick up the new devices. For those waiting on Google to get things figured out with its fledgling Tensor series of chips, this may be exactly what you were looking for, but it isn't the quantum leap that some people out there would have been hoping for. I want to know though what you think. Of course, at this stage it's mostly speculation on what the performance will bring. We're potentially a month away from devices hitting store shelves and shipping out to those who pre-order, so we'll learn more once available. But are you happy with this news or this potential benchmark? Are you disappointed, indifferent? Over the past few years, it seems the Pixel line has been more or less focused on less on raw specifications and more on the core experience, which, as we all know, back last year was riddled with bugs, and although has substantially improved over time and with the Android 13 update. I do want to know what you think. Just throw a comment down below and let me know. As always though, until next time, this is Damien with 95 Google, and I will speak to you later.